Another day, and Chris Johnston, another, we'll call it, controversy surrounding the Maple Leafs. This one having to do with the use of their practice facilities throughout the off-season. It was recently found out that throughout the CBA negotiations, there were some complaints from other teams about the Maple Leafs' use during the off-season. Can you maybe explain this in layman's terms for those who are wondering exactly what the issue is?
Well, I blame Elliot Friedman for this one because it was our colleague who brought this up on a radio interview, Sean, that he did Friday. But, you know, in the memorandum of understanding that was reached and ratified between the league and the players, there's some interesting language there that was put in about what teams can and can't do when it comes to summer workouts at their facility. And you know, to summarize it a little bit, I mean, it's things is like you can't have certain coaches on the ice with your players. I mean, we should be clear. Players are allowed to skate at their team's facility right through the summer, even under these new rules, but teams aren't allowed to pay for the travel of the players. They can't bring in specialty coaches. If a player even sees someone, say like a Gary Roberts, who runs a successful strength camp here, or Adam Oates, who does a lot of individual skills work, you know, that can't be provided by teams. And anyone who violates this, if it's a team, it's going to be no less than $50,000 fine according to the MOU, and an individual player would be no less than $10,000. And it even said teams could lose draft picks. And so, you know, this is deemed to be geared a lot at the building you see behind us, because a lot of players make their off-season home in the Greater Toronto area. The Leafs do have a lot of players come in the summertime and work with their people, and you know, that won't change. I just think what will change is some of the things they can do with those prospects or players when they are here.
Okay, with all that now out of the way, let's move on and talk about how the Maple Leafs are actually preparing for the coming playoffs. It's been a long time since the Leafs have had a healthy blue line. The layoff has allowed them to get healthy. Just how much of an impact and how much of a help do you think that'll give the Leafs come August 1st?
Well, you know, it obviously comes with more options. You got, you know, more members of your top six in the lineup. The Leafs basically didn't have an entirely healthy top six at any point this season. So that's a positive for the coaching staff. And I do think it offers a chance now to use the guys a little bit more situationally. And so, you know, the way the Leafs plan to start is to have Jake Muzzin and Justin Hull get their toughest matchups, be their quote-unquote shutdown pairing. You know, right now they have Morgan Riley skating with Cody Ceci. I think you can find some easier matchups for them. And then on their third pairing, what we would call their third pairing anyway, is Tyson Barrie and Travis Dermott. You know, an interesting thing Sheldon Keefe said, though, Sean, is that during the Phase 2, that was a small group workouts that were being done here, they actually had Travis Dermott shift over to the right side and spend some time on the right side of Morgan Riley. And while they haven't come into training camp maybe using that, it's something that I think they can go to down the line. And so, you know, having more healthy bodies is better for the team, because I do think it gives the coach more options, especially if they get in this playoff series and they need to make adjustments, because that's a big part of what happens, of course, at this time of year.
Now, there were some changes to the way that Sheldon Keefe broke up his groups at practice on Friday. Specifically, there was a reserve group, and part of that group was Nick Robertson. Do we read into this? Should fans read into this at all?
Well, it tells us where he's at this stage of camp. And I think that the key message that was given to all those players is, first of all, we're going to need to use our depth in this playoffs. I mean, no team gets through any playoff series, even barely a playoff game, without some kind of injury situation. So those players, doesn't mean that they're being ruled out. But if the first game of the series was to start tomorrow, it's pretty clear that Nick Robertson at this point isn't in the Leafs' top 12 forwards. And so, you know, it's interesting. Sheldon Keefe thought that this was their best day so far of camp. He liked having that manageable number in his game group, we'll call it. But, you know, I'm sure there's a little bit of disappointment if you're on the outside looking in. Even if you didn't expect necessarily to be there, the reserve group was a smaller practice. Keefe ran that practice. He actually gave a little pep talk at the start of it. I could hear part of what he was saying there, but was just saying we need everyone to be engaged here. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Keep working. And let's face it, there's still 4 more scrimmages in this training camp. I think not just Nick Robertson, but any of the sort of depth forwards are in the mix to maybe steal a bottom 6 job if they play well in those scrimmages.
Well, Chris, controversy, discussions of deep pairings, Nick Robertson hype. It's just another day at Maple Leafs training camp.